It is now a little more, I don't want to use the word difficult, but it has some challenges into getting people qualified to use the programs. The local programs are a little harder than the state programs, but we will get into that. And as I mentioned, there are two different, they fall under two different categories, state and local. And for those of you that are here listening, and probably for the others also, there's a PDF version of this presentation available that will be sent out to you guys, so that you can kind of see what all I was talking about. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call. I'm typically available from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. I tell my clients, ask me questions, and I feel if they can only talk after business hours, and I want them to ask me questions, but I don't answer my phone, that doesn't do a whole lot of good to tell them I want to answer questions. All I ask for you or your clients, if you get my voicemail, please leave me a message. There are too many people out there that are concerned about my vehicle warranty, and I really don't want to talk with them. So I don't call blank numbers back. But please, if you got questions, ask. So like I said, we have state programs, we have local programs. With the state programs, for the majority of it, they don't have a first-time homebuyer requirement. They can own a house as long as the house that they're buying is going to be their primary residence. We're good with that. They have forgivable and non-forgivable second liens. And as long as we do the forgivable ones, we only use the income listed on the 1003, which means if you have a couple and their income combined is over the income limit. And for most of the state programs, we're looking at $99,000 a year. So they're over the income, but the husband or even the wife, depends on whoever makes the most, can qualify for the loan on them by themselves. If it's FHA, that means they can cover their debts and their spouse's debts and will still fall within the guidelines. We'll take the wife off and they can still qualify. We don't have to use their entire income, but they do have to take a home buyer course. And it can be any of the HUD approved home buyer classes. There's even some that can be done online. I know, not sure if you guys are aware, but HVREA has a free class every month. Usually have one on Thursday night and then a couple hours on Thursday night and then the rest of it on the following Saturday. But these you have to take a home buyer class for these. So 3 of them that typically are TSHAC, the Seth 5-Star, and TDACA. TSHAC stands for the Texas State Affordable Housing Corporation, and TDACA is the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Usually go by the acronym because the full name gets long and cumbersome. So with TSHAC, we can do conventional VA, USDA, or FHA. USDA in the Houston area, you've got to get to the outer limits of the county in order for it to qualify, because it's a rural program and it's just hard to find areas that are eligible in Harris County. And sometimes depending on what the rates are, which they have gone up, they may not be available because with the state programs, they have a cap set on them by the federal government as to how high their interest rate can be. And here in a minute, I'll show you some of the interest rates as of today. It says 3, 4, 5% assistance. TSHAC has added 2% now. 5% is pretty much not available because of, again, that interest rate cap. And that's based on the that 3 or 4% is based on the loan amount and not the sales price. They have an income limit of $99,000, regardless of how many's in the household. The minimum credit score for government loans is 620 and 640 for conventional. If the score is between 620 and 639, they do charge a 0.5% origination fee. But we can then, if that's the case, we can then look at going to TDACA because they don't have that 0.5% origination fee. They have the same score requirements, but just they don't charge that extra 0.5% for the lower ones. Even at a 640, conventional is kind of difficult. PMI is going to be higher typically. The rates right now on these for conventional is higher. So I did one the other day on conventional. The scores were right around 700. One was slightly above, and one was in the upper 690s. The rate at that time was 7% for the conventional loan, and the PMI rate ended up being 1.35.
What's a normal range before they made this huge
On
declaration?
the PMI,
Yeah.
the higher the score and the more down payment,
Mm.
the lower the rate. The rate for FHA is 0.85.
Okay.
Unless you put more than 5% down, and then it drops to 0.8. So the rate was a whole lot higher on conventional. The PMI rate was a whole much higher on conventional. So it made more sense to use FHA, even though they had the higher scores. In that situation, it's just better. So here are today's rates. If they use a grant, which I don't see much anymore, you can get 2% assistance for 6.2625. If we go down into the 3-year forgivable, which means it's a second lien, it's forgiven after they stay in the house for 3 years. If they move out, refinance, or sell the house before that 3 years up, they have to pay the entire amount of money back. So to get 2% assistance at 6 and an 8, 3% is 6.625. The conventional is divided into above 80% AMFI and below 80% AMFI, which that's the annual median family income, which in this area is about $63,000. So if they're above that, your only option is 2% at 6.875% interest. If they're below that, you can get up to 4%, but as you can see, it's 6 and 8, 6.5, and 7. The 5% assistance is no longer available. And with these programs, it used to be fairly simple, fairly easy, almost a slam dunk. The rates were almost what market is. And pretty much the rates are pretty close to what market is still. Rates have gone up. They are higher, but they are not high. We're about the same place we were in 2018. We're nowhere near where they were in the 70s, when they were around 18%. So yes, they are higher, but they are not high. The sales price is what's really killing us. On T-Shack, they do not have a sales price limit. As long as it can stay conforming. FHA, I want to say that is around 320 loan amount. Conventional, it is, I should have looked all this up, it's above 500,000. So they don't have those income limits. With TDACA, again, it covers the same ones. VA, again, is a little trickier as will with USDA. They pretty much have the same amount of coverage. They have gone down to 2%. Government and conventional. The government income limit is 99,000. The conventional is still 63. So again, sometimes it doesn't help to have that minimum credit score of 620. Again, it's a 3-year forgivable or non-forgivable options. Their rates today, the first batch is My First Texas Home. There's a 3-year forgivable second, but this one uses certain money that they have to be a first-time home buyer with that. And we use all the income. And as you can see, they don't even have any interest rates for that one. So they don't have any interest rates for all of those. The typical one that we use is a My Choice Texas home, which is a bottom one. That is, again, a 3-year forgivable second. At this point, they don't have the MCC option. But Cornerstone has decided not to tie in MCCs when we use an assistance program. MCC is a whole other one. But as you can see, today, they don't have any interest rates. You cannot get that unless you do the 30-year deferred repayable. It's deferred for, I believe, well, it's not, you have to pay the money back regardless of how long you live in the house. So 2%, 6 1/8, 3%, 6 1/2. The only reason I would consider, again, TDACA at this time is if the credit score is a 620. And I let the buyers know, here's the deal. You got to pay that money back regardless. Because, and we could do it, and the repayable one, again, where you have to be the first time home buyer, it's a little bit better, but we've got to use the entire income and they have to be first time home buyers, which is not the case with the first choice homes. Seth 5-star, again, it follows along the same lines. The income limit for households of 2 is $63,840. For 3 or more, it's $111,720.
Sorry, I'm still not sure. Oops, sorry, I pushed a button. I didn't know.
Siri doesn't understand me.
I'm not sure I understand.
Must be my accent. And if it's a household of 3 or more, it's $111,720 for government. And on the conventional, it's $111,720 regardless of household size. They have a minimum credit score of 640. The rates, the first one, that's a grant, you can pretty much ignore because the maximum loan amount's $175. We ain't there no more at all. For the government, for a forgivable second, 6 1/8 and 6 5/8, pretty much the same as TDACA. And for conventional, they're not available. They don't have any availability on those. So it's getting hard nowadays for the state programs, just because of where the interest rates are and how they are governed by the feds, where they get the money as to how high they can have on interest rates. These rates are set by them. It doesn't matter if you have a 620 or an 820, the interest rate's the same. The only thing that changes the interest rate is how much assistance you get. The lower the assistance, the lower the interest rate. The lower the assistance, the more money they have out of their pocket. You're looking at, just say for grins, a $250,000 sales price. They will get a little bit less than $5,000 if they do the 2% assistance, which doesn't cover the 3.5% down payment. So they would expect to have probably still close to about $10,000 out of pocket. Yes.
Can they combine it with any other
No,
programs?
no, ma'am, they can't. This is it. As always, they can get gifts, but they cannot combine it with any of the others. I tend to lean towards T-Shack just because I've done them longer, done more of them. For a while, TDACA wasn't available. Seth still is, but they're not any better than the others. With Seth, you have to use their home buying class. And I want to say it's $100, whether there's one or two of them. With the other two, you just have to use a HUD approved home buyer class. Seth has been around for a while. Goodness, a long, long time. I did the first Seth loan that they did way back when. But for my purposes, they're a little more cumbersome to get through. I don't think it is as good. It is the best option for buyers between T-Shack and TDACA. Seth is the third. There is a Seth Gold Star, and it's about the same, but rate-wise and all of this, it's not as good as the others. So any questions on the state programs? Yes.
So with the T-Shack and TDHCA, do those accept assistance from other programs?
No, ma'am.
So
None of these
none-
programs, none of the state programs can use stack assistance.
Interesting.
Because most of the others, you can't do, say, combine it with the city of Houston or Harris County.
Right.
Because both of those competing ones want their lien to be in second position. City of Houston's not willing to move to the third position, and these aren't willing to move to third position. So, and with, as we'll see in the local programs, additional assistance is not typically needed. Like I say, with these, they can expect to have $9, $10, maybe $11,000 out of pocket, just because of the lower amount of assistance that we can get. When we're up to 4%, it'd be about $6,000 or $7,000 out of pocket. But with the lower amount of assistance, it's just a little harder. So any question, anybody online have a question on these? If you think of one, we can come back to it.
Any questions out there? If so, you can put them in the chat or unmute yourself.
Nope. All righty. So the local programs, you have to be a first-time home buyer. The definition of a first-time home buyer is someone who has not had ownership interest in their primary residence in the past 3 years. If they own a home, but it is paid off, they are still not a first-time home buyer because they've had that ownership interest in their primary residence. Even if they own one, they're currently renting, they have a house that they are renting, it's probably still going to be difficult, especially with the city of Houston. To do that, they don't want you owning really any other property. They have to be a citizen or permanent resident alien. If someone is here under the DACA program, they cannot use these local programs. Their guidelines are based on federal guidelines. And so this is what the federal guidelines say. The state programs do allow for DACA. But the local ones don't. And that's everyone in the household must be a citizen or permanent resident alien. If they have mom living with them and she is not under either one of those, then they cannot use the local programs. It's everyone. And it's a forgivable second. And the forgivable time period, also known as the affordability period, varies from program to program. So we'll talk about that specifically with each one. And it uses total household income. Everyone over the age of 18, they look at that income, whether they're on the loan or not. Now, if it is a child that's over 18 and they are in college, we show they're in college, they will use $480 a year for their income. Even if they have a job, they'll use that. But if mom is living in the house and she draws Social Security, they're going to include her income. So it is total household income. Even if they have a second job and they've only had it for 6 months, I cannot use that income because we have to have a 2-year history of working 2 jobs. But these programs will use that income. Even if we don't use overtime or bonus or commission or any of that, for whatever reason, these programs will. They pretty much take a certain number of months. With the city, it's 3. With the county, it's 2 of pay stubs. Most recent 2 or 3 months. Add them together, average it, multiply by how many times a year they get paid, and that's their annual income. So if it's, say, someone that is in the HVAC industry and it's summer, with the end of summer, well, they're going to work a whole lot of overtime during the summer. So it may push them over the income limits because of that, even though annually they don't have that. They would not be. So sometimes with the city, we can get it to figure out, and get them to average it out and see that. With the county, I haven't had any luck doing that. So they'd have to wait until the fall when their income isn't as high to average it out. And they must take a HUD-approved homebuyer class. Any of the ones that are around that are offered, they can take. So that's the general for all of them. There are 3, the city of Houston, Harris County, the new Harris County program, which is what I sent information out on, and it's why I got asked to come here. And I can't fill 2 hours just talking about that one program. I'm going to have a hard time filling an hour talking about these. And then the Montgomery County program. Those are the local ones that we have available. With the city of Houston, it can be conventional, FHA or VA. Again, USDA is difficult because it has to, well, impossible, because these houses have to be inside the city limits of Houston. And I don't know of any USDA eligible areas that are inside the city limits of Houston. Now, you can have a Houston address, but not be inside the city limits of Houston. You get up around 1960 or the Cypress Parkway, or whatever they're calling it nowadays. I've lived here 38 years now. It's still always been 1960 to me. Those have a Houston address, but it's not inside the city limits of Houston. Parts of Fort Bend County are inside the city limits of Houston, in Missouri City. Parts of them. The best way to check to know if the house you're interested in, you can look at it on HAR, go down to where it lists all the taxing entities, and if City of Houston is listed, it's eligible. You might advance one more screen on yours, because I can see here. You're one, there we go. You're one behind me. Typically what I do is on these programs, if you have a buyer that's interested, and they have a property in mind, let me know what that address is, because I go on and look to see, what the sales price is. If you're paying anything different than the sales price, I want to know that too. I see what the taxes are. I see what the HOA, if any, is, so that I can be sure that we fall within the city's guidelines, and make sure that it pays taxes to the city of Houston. One thing, minimum credit score is a 580. And on this, your property must be your primary residence for 5 years. You can't sell it. You can't rent it out. They do a check every year, just like your lenders will. They'll send out a postcard every year just to be sure. Oh, and the tax office does the same thing to make sure it's still your primary residence. So that they know, especially if you're getting the homestead exemption, they want to check on that. They have to have taken their homebuyer class and have a conditional qualification letter from a lender before they contact the city. They have both of those items, they can contact the city, and their name gets on a list, and typically within about a week, the city will send them an email with a list of documentation that they need and forms for them to fill out. Pretty much the 3 months of pay stubs, the I want to say 6 months of bank statements. There's a form that they'll need from the Attorney General's office. Whether or not they receive child support, they still need to contact them and get a print out, a report on it, and it will show none or will show if they are receiving some. But that's one of the requirements. Documentation for any other income they receive. And I pretty much collect all of that at the beginning too.
That's all right.
Because I want to know that they qualify for the program, for any of these local programs, before we even start looking at it, to see if they're over income. Again, because they can use income that I can't. And so I want to do this. I've been working with the city probably for at least 14 years. Once it came back again, we've been through the good, the bad, and the ugly. Based on the director that's been there. It has been some challenging times. Right now, part of it is challenging because once they get all that documentation back to the city, it's taking the city 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah. To know, to get it done where they have their conditional commitment letter. Once they have that letter, then they can look for a house. Because if you're looking at resale, you can't go under contract. No seller in the world is going to have that long of a period. Once we get that letter and we go under contract, we can close in 30 to 45 days. 30 days is tough because if I order my appraisal right away, it's taking about 2 weeks to get an appraisal. The city won't do their environmental study, which takes a couple of days, or their inspection of the house until they have that appraisal. That process can take a week. If it passes, great. It moves on into their closing, and that can take about a week. So now we're at 30 days. If we have any little hiccup in there, we're going to miss our closing date. So typically I request 45 days on this. Now, how you guys want to do it, if you want to put down 30 so you get it, and then ask for an extension, that's the way you guys handle things. I just know it's a whole lot less stress if we can do it in 45. We can close early. I'd rather tell you 45 and close it in 31, 32. Okay. Or tell you 30 and we close in 45. But the house has to go through an inspection. The city does it, the city orders it, the city pays for it. If it fails, we get a list of what's wrong. And I'll get that to the realtors. They get it to the seller's agent. And the seller fixes it, lets us know when it's done, they go back out. You have 3 strikes. If it fails the 3rd time, then we start all over. Not necessarily with that. If we want to stay with that house, but then we have to start the process all over again in another 30 days to 45. Yes.
What if the seller says, I'm not making any repairs, I'll maybe give you a credit?
If the city says it has to be repaired, it has to be repaired before closing. And the buyer really can't because the buyer doesn't own the house. Even if it shows up on the appraisal that repairs need to be made, the seller has to make those repairs before we can close. which I think is some reason why the seller's agents are trying to push them away from FHA loans. You guys would know kind of more on that than I would. Thing with FHA, what I've seen, what I've been told, it will make value typically if you fix these things. On conventional, you may not have to fix anything, but it may not make value. Because we're going to say with where it stands right now, it's worth this amount, and that may be less than what the sales price is. With FHA, it's if you fix these things, it's not going to be worth this. So, you know, it's just up to that. But if the city requires repairs, then they must be made. A lot of the things I see are, especially if it's an older home, they need GFCIs in the wet areas, kitchen, bathrooms. They usually require a smoke detector in all the bedrooms. Let me back up. A working smoke detector in all of the bedrooms. I had one where it did not have those. Seller, you know, got $5 or so smoke detectors from Walmart, installed them, came back out. He failed to install batteries in the smoke detector.
So that counted as a strike?
That counted as a strike because it has to be a working smoke detector. I think they require peepholes in the doors. And as always, burglar bars are a no-no. Even if we're not using one of these programs, burglar bars are a no-no. On bedroom windows, if it has a latch that can be released from the inside, it's good, it's fine. But if it has a lock on it that can be unlocked from the inside, that is not good. And you can't just remove the lock. I had a buyer argue with me, well, we'll just take the lock off, it'll be fine. I said, no, it won't. Oh, yeah, it will. No, it wasn't. When the appraiser went back out, no. They can just put that lock back on there. So it's egress doors, front and back doors, and bedroom windows cannot have burglar bars without that latch. And that's a standard practice. I think even on conventional, you can't have it. It's a safety issue. They may want to see if they have drop down stairs in the house, insulated. All that is getting a piece of insulation and laying it on, fold up the stairs, lay the insulation on top of the stairs and fold it back up. It's that simple to fix. They mainly are looking at safety issues. They typically want the electrical panel to be labeled so you know what breakers go to what devices. Things like that is what they're looking for. Broken windows is not good. Just things like that they look for. And again, you have three opportunities to get it fixed. But there is a form that the seller signs acknowledging that they're using this. It cannot be tenant occupied. The funds that they use do not allow them to evict a tenant. Now, if the tenant's going to be moving out, it's best to wait till we do the inspection and the appraisal after the tenant has moved out. So we show pictures. The city now does have an occupancy form that the seller signs stating what occupancy it is. And then there's also a notice for the seller to acknowledge that, here's the deal. We understand it's using the city and here's the guidelines and we're willing to proceed with that. Fortunately now they can be digitally signed. So we don't have to get wet signatures from everybody, which especially with the Harris County program used to be a pain. Because the seller's agent, the buyer's agent, and the buyer all would have to have a wet signature on it, which creates a whole lot of work for you guys representing the buyer to hand deliver it to everybody. It cannot be emailed or faxed because we've got to have original signatures on everyone. That has a debt to income ratio of 45%, and that is based on the city's computations. For us, student loans that are deferred, we have to count 0.5% of the balance as a debt, regardless of the status. If we do conventional, if we do Fannie Mae, it's a 1%. If we can show that it is an income-based program, and what the income, based on that, what the payment is, then we can do it with one of the conventional programs. I want to say it's Freddie that will let us do it that way. But it has to be conventional under Freddie. We can get by with just that income based. But if it's deferred, we have to use 0.5%, regardless, the city doesn't. On FHA, if they have non-medical collections that are more than $2,000, we have to use 5% of those balances, whether it's singly or cumulatively. We have to use 5% of that balance as a debt. The city does not. So their debt to income ratio will often be lower than mine. Once we have the approval from the city, I'll typically email them and ask them, hey, what income did you use? What income are you using for this? So then I know on this house, I'll fix it to match the city's guidelines, omitting those debts temporarily, using their income temporarily, to know what my ratios will be. So I can make sure that house is going to work. I don't want to get it in under contract and we're into it 2 weeks and I'll see come back and says, oh, your ratios are too high. I do not like that. So that's why I prefer to have it and make sure before you can go under contract. There's no maximum sales price, no age limit on the house. And there's 2 different City of Houston programs. For this one, it's 80% AMFI. So it shows across there. These are still last year's numbers. 2020 has come out. They just haven't updated it yet. Montgomery County has updated theirs. And we'll see what the new ones are. It's getting better. It's getting better on it. But all the income has to be under this. With these programs, it's in the current market, it's hard. I mean, even with the household, a 4-person household at $63,000, you're still, we might can squeeze out $225. But it could be hard. So it's just, and I think 225 is out there, but it's not easy to find. I think it's a little bit better inside the city than it is. I've got one that I'm doing that is at 168. It's a Habitat for Humanity house over on the northeast side. Brand new. It's 2 years old, but it's still brand new. Nobody's lived in it. I've got another one that's at 200 or 181. I can't remember. Most of the time when I finish working on one, I flush all that information out of my head before I go on to another. So certain ones things I can remember, but others it's not. So I don't know how many more they have out there. They're on Dallas Acorn and Texas Acorn. So you guys might go look on HAR for those and see what's listed on it. So I'm doing 2 of those with that. So this one is kind of hard, but it could be doable. I've got something more in the works, just starting to maybe get some low to moderate houses built, costing below 200,000 in certain areas. It's similar to the houses. I don't know if you're familiar with the Houston Land Board. They're building houses in acres homes. A lot of them, they have a driveway, a car pad. They're, possibly 3.2 around 1,100 square foot houses. There'd be something similar to that. The land board they having that. I don't know if they still have any houses. I don't even have them listed on here. I guess I should add them, because typically once they get houses completed, they've got enough people waiting that they get snapped up. But they give up to 50 grand in assistance. But you've got to want to live in the acres homes area. And there are people who want to live there because, as soon as they come available, they get snatched up, and they only have 6 or 7 come available at a time on it. Hopefully they can start getting more and more. The approval process for that's a lot less. It's usually about 2 to maybe 3 weeks on it, but it has to go through the city of Houston. Be sure that they fall within that 80% AMI. I've done several homes with them on that. So that's the main City of Houston program. They have one that uses the Harvey funds. Same thing, 30%, 30 grand in assistance, but they have to have lived inside the city limits during Hurricane Harvey in August of 2017. So they have to show something with that address, bank statement, utility bill, possibly a lease. But the bank statement or the utility bill works best. And again, it can have a Houston address, but not be inside the city limits of Houston. Again, the house they buy has to be inside the city limits. Same as before, 580 credit score. They have to live in the house for 5 years. Same ratios, no maximum sales price, no age limit. But the advantage of it, now we go up to 120% AMFI. So you can see now, 4-person household, $95,000. And again, this is last year's numbers. It should be higher once they start using the 2022 numbers. So now we're getting to a little bit better, where people stand a chance of being able to buy. But we're almost up to 8 grand a month of income. So that starts working out for that. Even for a single person household, 66, the one that's buying the one at 168, she falls under this category. And she made offers on 30, 40 houses before they finally found this one. I've been working with this lady for over a year. Her and a realtor. These programs are not for the faint-hearted. It's going to be tough. You're going to have to do some work to find them, and you may have to make offers upon offers upon offers to finally get one accepted. Because if you find a house, at that price point, there's going to be investors paying cash. Let's close in 10 days. And the sellers are looking for that. They're not going to want to try to put the first-time home buyer in a house. So at this, it's getting a little bit better. To be almost 8 grand a month, you can start getting upwards of 200 or so thousand, maybe a little higher. I know I was talking to a neighbor of mine who is having to move. He's renting, having to move because the owner is selling it, and he was trying to find a rental, and they're asking to show income 4 times the amount of the rent. He says, I'm renting at $2,000 a month. I'm self-employed. If I was making 8 grand a month, I'd buy a house. It's getting harder and harder. And I'm preaching to the choir. You guys know all of that stuff. So this program is great, especially if they lived in the city of Houston during Hurricane Harvey. Again, we're still looking at 45-day close. The same process, the process is the same. It's still gonna be 6 to 8 weeks before we get a conditional commitment letter so that they can start looking. The only way I would even consider them putting a contract on a house, and they've done it before and so a couple times come close, is if it's new construction and the house hadn't even been started yet. We should have the city's approval within 4 months or so that it takes them to build a house. I've had it done where it was about 3 months construction time, and we had to push back closing because the city still didn't get a surprise, their approval. They've been behind for 2 years, and it's just do not been able to keep up. And it's hard to train somebody. I can see their point. They don't really want to train a whole bunch of people, get them trained, and then it dries up, and now they got to lay people off. I understand that. So hopefully they may be looking to hire more people, because my contact at the city asked me if I had any verifications of employment that I could send her after blacking out all the stuff to use for training purposes. So I don't know, they may be looking to hire on. I don't know yet. So Harris County, this one is really, really fun. Conventional FHA up to 23.8. It's based on need. So the property must be in Harris County, but not in the city limits of Houston, Pasadena, or Baytown. Those programs have their own. Well, Pasadena and Baytown used to have one, and they may still. Baytown may still, but it's a $5,000 assistance. You have to buy a house that's in the city limits of Baytown, and you had to live inside the city limits of Baytown before you buy a house. So it's extremely nichey, and I don't even, for $5,000, I don't even look at it. Again, minimum credit score of 580. Now that's for FHA. Conventional is 620. It's basically the income, the credit score that the lender sets. 580 is hard to get approved on FHA. This is because they probably have issues on their credit, if they have any credit. I know there are some lenders that, I don't know if they still do, used to say that they'd go down to 540, but they have conditions. Like you could not have any derogatory credit in the last 24 months. Well, if you've got a 540 credit score, odds are you're going to have derogatory credit in the last 24 months. So they'll say they'll do it, but then they really don't. And those are typically your big banks. And I love the big banks because they typically have issues. And a realtor calls me and says, hey, I've got a problem. Can you fix it? And most of the time I can, but a lot of times we wouldn't have had that problem had the loan officer new guidelines. They have to live in the house for either 5 or 10 years. If they get assistance that's $14,999 or less, they have to live in the house for 5 years. If it's $15,000 or more, they have to live in the house for 10 years. Their DTI is 39 for the housing, 42 for overall debt. And the asterisk is there because if I can provide them a US approval, automatic income underwriting system, either DU or LP, that shows an approval, we can go up to a 50% debt to income ratio. But the 32 is hard. They don't want the housing to go over 39%. So, and they'll usually do assistance will pay closing costs and down payment enough where it gets them below that 39%. Typically with the city of Houston, Harris County, well, with any of these state programs, they can look to have their out of pocket will be their earnest money, their option fee, plus about $500. These programs, and I know I'm kind of skipping around, these programs do not allow you to get cash back at closing. So you're getting credit for your earnest money and option fee. And typically I put the extra $500 on there because a lot of times my third-party fees come in lower than I estimate. Title fees, appraisal, survey, that type of stuff comes in lower. Insurance may come in lower. So I try to have a buffer in there. So at the last minute, we don't have to go in and change my loan amount to cover that. And I typically don't know that for sure until we send the CD out 3 to 4 days before closing. So that gives us about 3 to 4 days to get it fixed. It doesn't take that long. I can still get it done in that 3 to 4 days, even with the city. But why have the stress? So I try to know ahead of time and build in some comfort into that, so we don't have to worry about it. They have not updated their new home prices. It's $209,000 for an existing and $243,000 for new housing. Yeah, we all know that that's difficult to find in this market. I say it can be built after, I should say can be built before 1978. They started allowing that to come in because a lot of realtors now were requesting it. They don't want to deal with the lead-based paint issue. Now, if it's built before 1978, here's what you've got to do. The buyer has to get a lead-based paint inspection. If lead-based paint is discovered, the seller has to pay for the abatement. Nobody's going to do that. No seller is going to agree to that. So it's pretty much, in my opinion, a moot point. Just look after 1978. But finding houses in that price range right now in Harris County outside of Houston is hard. It's not impossible. I had one client go on a contract on one. We got moving with the Harris County. We got the inspection. There's some issues. They went back to the seller saying, hey, I need you to fix these issues. The seller said no. So they terminated the contract. So Harris County is hard, and I haven't done one in a while, but what my friends in the industry have told me, they're taking about 60 days to close. So I take, and we don't have to do anything up front with you. It's all done once they're under contract. So there's paperwork that has to be filled out, and I have to gather up all the documentation, and I have to send it all in to Harris County. And I've just been told after they gathered, it's still taking them a while, and they're not really all that busy. I'm not sure what the deal is, except for it being a bureaucracy. I know that the county judge is made aware of it, county commissioners are aware of it, and these guys are under the hot seat because they're just not getting it done. Montgomery County, who we'll talk about, has one lady in charge. From June of last year to the end of the last year, Harris County closed 3 houses. Montgomery County, I think, closed 17.
Must be the bureaucracy.
That's my thinking. I've worked with Harris County 16, 17 years. I'm on the 3rd director, because the other 2 have retired. So they've got some issues in there, and everybody's aware of it. So I haven't done a Harris County loan in probably over a year, just because it doesn't work, especially now with housing prices where they are. A household of one person can't find a house. You're looking at maybe a 180 sales price, built after 1978, that's in decent condition, that investors aren't buying.
That's unfortunate because that means they have a lot of money just sitting.
Misappropriated.
which is why they're under the hot seat. So, but Harris County is really hard, especially, and the income limit and the sales price limit is set by the feds. So they have no control over that. For 2022, it has increased. Montgomery County is working on, has the new numbers and are using that. Harris County hasn't got, they'll usually update around June. But again, they have to, I think, have to go through so many layers of stuff to get stuff approved. It's hard. It really is. Doable, yes. Easily, no. You got to be committed to this to really find out. Here's the new program. That's exciting. The single family new construction program. It's conventional FHA or VA. They can get up to $35,000 in assistance. Again, it is based on need. 80% AMFI income limit. There are specific houses that the county has built. And we'll see in this, and I think I even sent out in my first email that showed where they are in kind of the sales prices. They can get up to a 25% discount on the price of the home, which is good. Again, the minimum credit score is whatever the lender allows. Right now, for me, that's 580. The property has to be their primary residence for 10 years. They've got to live in it for 10 years. Cannot refinance, none of that stuff. They're not required to be a first-time home buyer. They just have to show that they can pay off the mortgage of the current house. We must sell it. The debt to income ratio is again 39.42, and I believe I can still squeeze up to 450 if need be. There's steps. There's a pre-application, and I can send you guys all these forms that they fill out that just gives basic information. Here's this program, and this does not go through, to a degree, the regular Harris County. We send it to the contacts there at this one. They say, okay, yeah, you look like you match. They send them an intake application. Basically, they send them the forms that Harris County uses. But these go back to the single family new construction program people. They give them additional financial documentation. I will have a lot of that because I asked for it up front, again, just to be sure. And I can send all of that to the contacts there. So the buyer, unless they have updated pay stubs or bank statements, we'll need the most recent ones. And they have other forms that the buyers fill out. But again, it goes back to the single family people. Once they get everything, they send it all to Harris County for approval. And I am told it takes 2 weeks because they're not looking at all the rest of the house stuff. They're just looking at the buyer. And they'll come back and say, yeah, they qualify. And based on this, here's how much assistance they will get. So we'll know how much assistance they're getting. So I'll send them my pre-approval letter. Then once we get notice eligibility back, then you can look at the homes. Go schedule viewing, go under contract. And we can typically, I would say, close again in 45 days, which is not a big deal for them because you're not competing with anybody else on these houses, because you've got to get to this point before you can even make an offer. And they may have a couple of offers, but a lot of these houses, they'll have 2 or 3 in the neighborhood that are pretty much the same. So if you don't get on this house, you got to get on this one. And once they get under contract, we're looking at closing in September. They have to go in and retrofit some stuff. What, I don't know, but they're not doing it until they have an offer on it. So we'll close The earliest ones we can close in September. Here's the area of where they all are. I know there's one, I want to say it's 12. It's in the Alding area, just off of 59/69. Let's go here to the next one. Here's the list. Here's where they all are. Drew Mark is the ones that I was talking about. They have 2 houses available. The third one is they're under contract. The ones that are under contract are pretty much one they've done on their flood buyout program. If somebody continually had flooding issues, the county was buying their house, providing them assistance and all of this. I did one. It was a nightmare. It's not opened up. They're not buying it out anymore. Thank goodness. A lot of the ones that they sent me didn't even qualify for a loan. And this was over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago that I did it. And it was a nightmare. Because the county started the program, and I've talked about this with these people. Did their guidelines without consulting a realtor or a lender. So it took me forever to find out for this one couple, how much were they getting in assistance? Because I said, I can't even tell you if they qualify for this house until I know how much they're getting in assistance. Well, I said, no, it doesn't work that way. Fortunately, the lady had moved over to this department that I worked with for years and years in Redwood Harris County. So we worked together, got it all figured out, and they were supposed to redo it. The guy that's in charge of it knows that there's a problem in the Redwood County program with the flood part. But he wasn't staying in his lane. A lady who used to be my boss is doing one, so we've been talking a lot back and forth on this, and it has just been a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. This one has been there since January, and I've been having conversations with them, to get them understanding where the lender's coming from. So you can see when they where they are. Did I put it on here? No, I didn't. In the original email I sent out, I had a list of when they would be available. The Drew Mark ones are available be able to close in September. Some of the others may not quite be there. I know Drew Mark, everything is up. The 2-story bedrooms and baths are all up. I had one client looking at it. She's on the Harris County Section 8. And it would have worked, except she's not able to climb stairs. She wasn't real thrilled with the location. It's between East Mount Houston, I think on the north. It's right off of 59, but it's right in that area. It's still the Alding School District. And they may be on HAR. I'm not sure if they are or not, but you can go to that. So these are the houses that are available and what it is. The ones, no, I'm sorry, she wasn't looking at Drew Mark, she was looking at Gaston. My bad. Gaston is the one that's all up because it's 195. Drew Mark is in Tomball, right near Concordia Lutheran High School. They're on the east side of Tomball. It is possible, I looked, if they can get the full 25% discount on the house, that brings the sales price down to about 175. So it would fit, especially if you're a 4-person household.
And they have the same setup as like the no garage, only the car key.
I think some of these have garages. I haven't, on the thing that I sent, when it showed, I think the when they'll be available. One of the things beside it had
A picture.
pictures of some of them. And I believe they have garages. I think the ones on Gaston do, and I want to say the ones in Drew Mark do. A lot of these will have garages to them. So some are available now, some are available coming up. But it's a good program. I think a lot of people can qualify if they can find a house in the area that they want to live. I said there's a couple there in Tomball. The ones on Gaston are in that 59 East Mount Houston area. The others, Crosby, out Old 99, outside the loop. I know the area of Port of Call, Choice Homes used to build out there. I think someone else is now. It's a little bit older subdivision. I just recognize that street name from years and years and years ago. Marlin Spike is probably in the same area. I don't know in Cade, Dry Brush Place. I'm not sure where that is. So they're, and most of these, you know, especially the Drew Mark, if you can't get on one, you can probably get on the other. They're across the street from each other. And my bet is they're pretty much very similar houses. So that is that program. Well, the new Mark ones is part that's in Newport, a part of their land trust. So it has to go through differently. Both the city of Houston, now Harris County, has got a land trust deal, and it could be good, it may not be. You lease the land. 99-year lease, it can be renewed. You're paying about $50 a month for the lease, just like with an HOA. You can only sell the house to another low to moderate income family. And you're limited on how much you can sell the house for. It increases 2 to 5% a year. An advantage when it comes to property taxes, you're only taxed on the improvement because you don't own the land. So you're not taxed on. And it can only be valued at what you can sell it for. You seem to be familiar with the land trust. So it could be a good thing. The trust portion is good for 99 years. You can pass it down to children if you die. And then 99 years starts all over again. Certain homes, I am not able to do those loans. I tried, but they have a few lenders that do. And the reason that I am told by my uppers is that on these programs, the federal government has tighter restrictions. They have to do more reporting, and they have to have certain people trained. And a lot of the servicers don't want to go through all of that for 3 or 4 loans. Some of these banks that are doing it have done CLTs in other areas, so they have that other pool. They're used to them, so that's why they're doing it. So those in Newport are for that. The ones, what one was number 3? I don't see a number 3. There's one that said,
It's one.
there's one in Katy Crossing.
Lake Houston is in there.
They have the one that's one of the ones in the Katy Crossing are part of the land trust, but will be available through the single family. So it probably would not, it could probably go either way, either land trust or single family on that one. And then there's some that aren't available. So that's that program. Like I say, it's new. To me, it's exciting. I found out about it in January and got my name on the list with them. Hey, this fits into my wheelhouse. I get word out to realtors. We'd probably stand a good chance of selling all your houses. So that's why I got this information out to realtors. Hey, this is something I think will work for our low to moderate buyers, which excites me tremendously. That is my world. At least 90% of my business uses some type of assistance program, and it's a low to moderate first-time home buyers. So I'm excited to try to find anything because it's rough right now.
Yeah.
It's really rough. So this one I think is going to be great for this. It's a really good program, and I hope to sell their houses as fast as I can so they build more. Montgomery County. You may have some that want to buy in Montgomery County. It's up to 12.6 in assistance. Again, we look at paying down payment and a lot of the closing costs. It must be in Montgomery County, but not in the city limits of Conroe. Again, it could have a Conroe address. You go about half a mile north of me when you cross Robinson Road, Robinson Road, Woodlands Parkway, but Robinson Road on the east side of 45. It becomes Conroe address, but it's not the city limits. You don't hit the city limits until you get to about 1488. And I know you have an office up in that area.
Mhm.
So those realtors probably, know what I'm talking about. Again, we look it up on HAR and see, or I look it up on MCAD to see, to make sure that it doesn't pay taxes to the city of Houston, city of Conroe. Your minimum credit score, it's got to be primary residence for 5 years, must be a first-time home buyer, must be a citizen of Puerto Rico negative, and they have a 38 to 45 DTI. And therefore, those are hard numbers. But again, with all these local programs, they compute income and debts differently than I do. So I have to look at it both ways. And it's easy enough for me. I've been doing it long enough. It's second nature to me doing it. These are the new numbers. Max price is $227 for existing and $251 for new. Which is a little more reasonable up in that area. There's a house 2 doors down that's across the street from the one I was talking about earlier. It came on the market, $280, and it needs work. It was built in the early 1990s. They had an open house, so we walked down and see because it's only 2 doors down. Kitchen is original, bathrooms are original, pretty much everything's original. So you're gonna buy for $280 and then have to put in about $50,000 to $60,000, probably worth of remodeling on it. All new flooring. The carpet is, I don't know how old.
I hope not original.
It may be.
It probably.
It may be. We knew the family that bought it. We've lived 2 doors down from it for 38 years. We watched it built. An older couple built it. Then they went to sell it, and the neighbor across the street bought it and lived in it for a little while. Well, they rented out the house that they had. And then they moved down south to be closer to a family that needed help and started renting it. So my bet is it's original carpet. I did notice they still have their original wall oven, but it looks like a new stove has been put in. Stove range thing has been put in. But everything else on it's original at $280. The house across the street, $299. It was built in the 60s. They did add on another master suite, main suite, primary suite. So it kind of has 2 of those, but still $299. And it sits a little, the driveway slopes down towards the garage, so if you get a good rain, water's in the garage. They do have barriers up, but if it rains hard and fast, it will still get into the garage. So something's got to be done to fix that. And it needs work. The guy that's living there, I've visited with him some, he's a contractor. He says it needs new kitchen, new bathrooms, all of that stuff. So it's crazy, but you can find houses in this price range in Montgomery County. I did one a while ago. It was a new 900 square foot house. So I forget, he didn't pay but maybe 120. It's up near, it's a little north of Montgomery. So it's possible to find houses in this area. And we've got decent income amounts. And this is what eventually the city of Houston and Harris County will come up to. You got a family of 4 at 70,000, you can qualify for a house in this range. You just got to find it. You have to get a little further off from 45. Maybe get over into East Montgomery County off 59. Some of those places, maybe even go up to Willis. But they are available at this price range. The lady, one person office, meets with the buyers, gets all of their information, make sure they qualify. And they got to take a home buyer class still, but HUD approved.
I have
Yeah,
a question about the home buyer class. So you've given like a lot of different ranges for like the approval or the move-in process, all of that combined. So if they take the HUD class, let's say tomorrow, is that good for the remainder of?
good for a year.
Okay.
It expires in 1 year.
Cool.
Hopefully we can get them into a house
Within-
within a year. I've got one that no, they didn't. I think it's one that's under contract with the Habitat for Humanity house. She pretty much had to retake it because we've been trying to find her house for that long.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good for a year. Montgomery County does offer one through Hoyo, Home of Your Own, Easter Seals, but it's virtual. We used to do them in person, but they haven't gotten back doing it and letting her do it in person yet. The place where she does it is fine with it. They can take any HUD approved in person home buyer class. If they want to drive down to one of the HBREA offers. And I think it's at it's not University of Houston. It's at another
Maybe Texas Southern.
Texas. I don't know if it's Texas. You know where the HBRE offers their home buyer class?
They're
What
virtual.
Are they?
Mhm.
Okay. And they may have some in person, but some of them are virtual. But yeah. So
Yeah,
It's-
I used to call to get the presenters. It's all
Okay.
virtual.
okay.
Well, for this year it has been.
Okay. I know Fifth Ward does some that's in person.
Mhm.
I'm doing one Saturday, doing a portion of one Saturday. They also have some virtual. I prefer more in person than virtual. So Montgomery County is possible, and we can close 45 days. Again, I say that just so we don't have any hiccups. They do an inspection. Montgomery County is real easy to work with. The lady there is great. She's on the ball. I've worked with her since she's been there 6, 7 or more years. I've worked with all these programs a while because it's been my world for a while. So that's all of it. I was able to stretch it out a goodly amount of time with my rambling. So any questions? Yeah.
Which program would you say would be the easiest one to get somebody in and out in that 45-day period?
City of Houston or Montgomery County? If we're looking at one of the local larger ones. With the state programs, we can close in 30 days.
And that's the T-Shack.
T-Shack, TDACA, Seth. Again, I don't really look at Seth. I don't know how, with those programs, we do all the underwriting. We don't have to send it to them for an approval. I prefer T-Shack just because I'm used to working with it. It's simple. Most of our underwriters are used to it. The local programs, I'm doing one with the city and she had not ever seen it before, which scares me sometimes because I tell them all we need to make sure we're good with the city is their final approval. But once we get that, we know we meet all their other guidelines. Because oftentimes my DTI is over 45%. But they don't understand that the city figures income differently. They look at debts differently. This lady believes me, that, okay, that's all we need. We don't have to worry about any other guidelines. No, we don't, because they look at it differently. And she, believe me, a lot of them I have to fight with because they don't get it. They say it can't be that easy. Well, it is. I go through the whole steps with it on, and they still just fight me.
I have a question. One of our viewers on Zoom. She asks, how do you find the Harris County single family SFNCP properties?
I have those listed there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have them listed in the thing. And I had in one of my original email that I sent out, there's a lot of the stuff on it.
Okay.
You can send that out.
Along with the one you sent me this morning?
No.
No.
That's me.
Oh.
I can't turn the ringer off. I flip the switch and it says no. It doesn't hold it. But in the original one from way back, that's into whole, probably the HBRA group.
Okay.
That first one, which is the one that I assume was responded to me on. It has a lot of that stuff. I can also look and give you the website on it. But they're listed in this that they have now available.
So she also asks, do you receive an update when new homes are added?
I probably will, now that I'm on their radar. They send out I got a newsletter from them the other day. So probably you could email
If you email it to me,
them and ask to be put on their newsletter. They have a realtor. I found out about this program through, you mentioned my name. And I want to be able to keep up with what's going on. So I'll work to get that to you today when I get back. And you don't have to use me for these programs. You can use the lender that you're happy with. And I know pretty much all the realtors have a lender they're happy with. But your lender needs to know the programs, especially the local programs, to make everything smooth. I have had calls from realtors that have said, we started with this lender to use a city program and they don't know what they're doing. Can you help? Sure. Pretty much what has happened, they called the city and said, hey, we're having issues with the lender not understanding. What do we do? And they tell them, call me. I've worked with them that long. They know I know my stuff. And if anybody wants to check on me with the city, call them and ask them about me. I don't care. They can call Montgomery County and ask them about me. They can call Harris County. I haven't done anything with them in forever. Just because I can't. It has not been able to work. Even before the sales prices went crazy, you still could not get a single family person into a house. because those houses didn't exist, and they understand that. Now, I've told them, I say, I understand your issue, but, so yeah, they can, I'll get that, and you guys can contact them, email them and say, hey, can you get me on the list, your newsletter list, so I know what's going on. They're hoping to hire a liaison between realtors and lenders to help get some feedback, I think, and make sure they're doing it. Because I explained it in the problem we had with the flood control buyouts and how difficult it was for lenders. Because their guidelines, the way they were doing it, didn't make sense on it because they didn't talk to anybody in the industry about that. Any other questions?
I have one question. So before we get our clients ready to come to you, what are some, I guess, like 3 good things that we should already have to have you prepared for?
The documentation ready to go. 3 months of pay stubs. If we're using one of the local programs, 3 months of pay stubs, documentation for any other income they're getting, whether it be Social Security, child support. The child support I would need to print out from the Attorney General's office. I need the most recent award letter for Social Security. If they're getting it for children, I would need those letters also. If the children are, say, 14 and older, I need to know the date of birth. I can only use that. I have to show that income will continue for 3 years in order for me to use it.
Okay.
The local programs will use it regardless. So that's why I need the date of birth. Because if we're going to close after they turn 18, I cannot use that for qualifying purposes. I want to see it because I want to know what we're dealing with income limit wise for the local programs. Same thing with child support. The decree may say if they go to college, they will still receive it, but there's no guarantee they're going to go to college. So I need to know that. And if there's multiple children, a divorce decree would be helpful. Because if they have one that's going to turn 18 and one that's not, usually the child support varies.
Mm-hmm.
So then I can look at the decree and see what the child support will be for that one. 2 months of bank statements, last 2 years of W-2s. If they are self-employed, I need the last 2 years of complete income tax returns. If they're part of, say they have a sub-S or corporation, I need the corporate returns in addition to personal returns. Driver's license, social security card. If they have all that handy, when the way they would do it, they go to my website, click on pre-qualify. It asks for email, their name, email address, and the password. They decide the password. They put that in, hit continue. It emails them a validation code. Takes a couple of seconds. They put that in, tell it continue again, and it opens up for them to start filling out. It'll take them 5, maybe 10 minutes to fill it out. If they are married, I need the spouse's information. So there's a box that says add co-borrower information. You just click on it and put in that information. That person will need a separate email address. Fill out answer all the questions. When you get to the end, they click submit. It submits their information. It pulls their credit, and it sends me an email that I know they've done it. Then it'll also give them information about our borrower portal called LoanFly, and they can upload all that information to our system, or they can email it to me if that's easier for them, or they can fax it to me. I don't care how I get it as long as I get it. And then it usually takes me 1 to 2 days to get it to my staff to see where they are. But the reason I need the spouse's information, if we do an FHA loan, say the spouse does not have adequate credit scores to be on the loan, so they're not on the loan, I still have to include their debts. Texas is a community property state. On government loans, I have to include the spouse's debts, regardless. And that way I don't have to come back later and pull the credit for it. I can take them off, no harm, no foul, easier than I can go and add them back later. So that's why I prefer it that way.
Okay.
Like we said before, I'm available 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday
All right.
for questions,
That is
So-
awesome.
both for your buyers or for your questions.
No. Cool.
You can also email me,
That's KeithLemons@houseloan.com. I'm sorry.
klemons@houseloan.com.
KLemons@houseloan.com.
It should have it on the very beginning screen.
Slide? Okay.
Maybe not, but I thought I put it up there.
At the very bottom there?
Yeah. Does it have it?
No.
Nope. It's on the bottom of my website, but it's klemons@houseloan.com.
All right. Anyone else have questions before we wrap it up? No? All right. Well, Keith, we want to thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Also for providing us with lunch from Cane's. We're gonna sit and enjoy that for a little bit. And thank you all for joining us via Zoom. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure.